life, there are always options. Are you hearing me? In life, there are always options. Never have the view of life that it's just like this. No. Concerning the issues, the situations, and the circumstances, there are always options. And we are going to look at those options today. Those 4 lepers that sat at the entrance of the gate were able to acknowledge at least 3 options. We are going to examine them. And in the process of examining, I'm praying that God is speaking and will continue to speak to you. Option number 1. If we say we will enter the city, the famine is in the city and we shall die there. If we say we'll enter the city, the famine is in the city and we shall die there. I want you to know that the decision to go into the city is a risky one. As lepers, they are not expected to be where people are. But these 4 men were saying that we are willing to take a risk. I want you to write this down or sink it into your spirit. There is no decision you are about to make that does not have an element of risk. Many of us are in our comfort zones. The reason you are not stepping out is because you are afraid. But I'm here to tell you today that every decision, every choice, everything you have, it has an element of risk. They said if we go into the city, that means for you to go in, you are ready to be arrested. Because they're not expected there. But they were willing to take that risk. But you know, if you look further, they said, but if we go into the city, there is famine already there. So they had to think, why would we take a risk that in the end will not be profitable? Are you listening to me? Why take a risk that at the end will not be profitable because the people in the city, they're going through their own famine? We just read about the 2 women who ate their 2 sons, or 1 son. So the 4 lepers said, we will not take a risk that will not yield results. Write it down. Do not take risks that will not yield results. It reminds me of the story of the man, I think he was in Ibadan. The man who decided that his name was Daniel and decided to enter the zoo. He did not know that the lions in Nigeria are different from the lions in London. The ones in London, they are so well fed. But the ones in Nigeria, maybe they do 101 or 001. He didn't know they had a menu. So he decided that he would go into the lion's den, and of course, the Lord will shut the mouth of the lion. How many people know that the lions had been praying? Oh Lord, give us food today. Oh Lord, give us food today. And what happened? The Lord answered the prayers of the lion. How many people remember the story? That man was not acting in faith, it was foolishness. The reason why many of you, your fingers have been burnt is because you took risks that definitely will not yield results. Are you hearing me? They said, let us go into the city. But then they remembered that the city, there was famine there. Do not take risks that will not yield results. What number are we on? Second option. No, let me look at the second option. The second option they had for themselves is that if we sit here, we die also. If we sit here, we die also. That means if you remain in that inglorious position, nothing is going to change. If you stay there for as long as you want to stay there, until you see the Lord in glory, it says nothing is going to change. If we sit here, we are going to die. I want you to write it down. No movement, no change, no movement, no progress. No movement, no change, no movement, no progress. Sitting down and doing nothing about the problem will not change the problem. Sitting down, doing nothing about the problem will not change the problem. It's still going to be there. And one of the things that I found many of us are guilty of is indecision. Not making decisions as at when you should. And I found some very interesting quotes on indecision. I went to look for it. There's one by a man called Chris O'Philly. He says, change is not indecision. Change is not indecision. That means you cannot stay in a state of indecision and then you are expecting change to happen. The two don't go together. If you want to see change, then you have to make some decisions. If you want to see change, you have to make some decisions. Another person said, indecision and delays are parents of failure. Indecisions and delays are parents of failure. How many people have heard it that the decision you do not make will do what? It will overtake you. The decision you do not make, it will overtake you. And there's one by a gentleman called William James. And he said, I quote, there is no more miserable human being than one in whom nothing is habitual but indecision. He's simply saying the human being that consistently lives in that sphere of indecision is a miserable person. So the second option for those 4 lepers was this. He says, if we sit here, we are going to die. So we have to make a decision. No movement, no change, no movement, no progress. We have to leave this place. Now the third option. They said, now therefore, come let us surrender to the army of the Syrians. If they keep us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, we shall only die. Option 3. Let us go over to the army of the Syrians. Now, I don't know how they arrived at this particular option, but it sounds crazy. Why would you go to the army of the Syrians? They are the ones that besieged you in the first place. They are the ones that created that situation in the first place. Why would you even think of that? And I wrote here, sometimes the best ideas are sometimes crazy. I couldn't find any other word. Sometimes the best ideas are sometimes crazy. And if you don't like the word crazy, sometimes the best ideas are sometimes out of this world. Because why would you want to go into the enemy's camp to surrender? But they chose that option because that was the only option that had a 50% probability that they would get food. Remember, what are they looking for? They're looking for food. That option is the only one that would give them the food they were looking for. So we're going to go through a process together. For them to choose option 3, there's certain things they must have thought of. Number 1, they decided they were going to get up. Number 2, they knew the direction that they would go to the camp of the Syrians. Number 3, they must have practiced what to say. Have you thought about that? That when they're going to the army of Syria, what are you going to tell them? So I began to say, oh, hello, how are you? We are 4 lepers. Please, we need food. I'm sure in their mind, they had thought through different things. Eventually, they chose option 3. I want you to know that in life, there are always options. And as you write and go through those options, you begin to see the one that God, by His Spirit, will direct you